Let's talk about music business. Now, I'm going to just shut down the Instagram feed here for a moment. The live Instagram feed is gone. And we're going to take this week to discuss a couple of elements inside of music business. That includes things like copywriting and marketing and various organizations that are installed and operating to help out the musician, the artist, the composer, the whatever you want to call it. Um, and you know what's great, and a lot of the resources online that I do pull from is from the Berkeley Online School of Music Business. And I use some of the content that they did back when we were discussing mixing techniques and the basics of sound recording. They do a great job. I mean, if I was ever going to go to a school, for me, personally, to go to a school for audio production, whether it be engineering, whether it be technical, or whether it be business, I might really consider not only going to Boston to Berkeley, but and if I didn't get in, taking the online, uh, I guess, degree programs because there is a tremendous amount of information out there. Now, if you don't go to the school, and of course, not too many people will, the odds are in the world, only a very tiny little percentage of people actually end up going to Berkeley. The the resources that they use are all on their website. So I have this bookmarked, and I've had it for a long time since they started really ramping up their online presence, both social media and YouTube, and of course their website. So I'm going to follow a little bit of this online graduate course for music business over the next few days because it's just a good roadmap for basics. Now, obviously, if you were a music business major and you were taking this as your degree program to eventually get into the music business, it would go way further than we will in the next 3 or 4 or 5 days or whatever we're going to do. So I want to just really kind of skim across the top of the major topics and ideas that have to do with business in the industry. And the first one I really want to start talking about today is copyright. Now, this particular article here does not have much to do about copyright. It has to do more with getting information and finding out how to use that information to decide whether a person's going to make money by investing their creativity into things like Pandora or Facebook or Twitter, and then what that equates to in regards to money. Um, so, yeah, I mean, this is all well and good, and it looks way more money than I would ever be able to make on a single song or an album. But honestly, this isn't the truth here. And so when you get to it, it kind of looks more like this, but we'll get into that a little later. And just very interesting here, an artist changes their social handle or username. Interesting. So people, oh, there's some cursing there. Ugh. Um, but yeah, there's a whole bunch of things that people don't think about when you're talking about your online presence and then what that can equate to for money as an artist. But the first thing is this: you have to protect yourself in one way, shape, or form. So today and probably into tomorrow, I'm going to sit and just discuss some ideas about copyright. Now, a lot of people will ask you, what is copyright? What is the thing that is supposed to protect me? I'm an artist, I'm an intellectual, I'm an idea person, I create, I'm creative. What in the copyright law, and there is a law, um, can protect me? Let's go back to the history as I always do. Let's look at the past to decide what that means for the present. So in 1976, a very large amount of artists, as well as, um, science and inventors and things like that, these are all in the same realm, to be honest with you. An inventor will come up with an idea, they'll create something, and they don't want anyone to steal that idea because they want to make the money. So it's the same exact flow chart that you would have for Thomas Edison's light bulb, right? Or we went back and talked about Marconi and Tesla having their war in Congress and in the judicial system about who would actually get the patents for wireless telegraph or wireless technology. That's a big deal. And to be honest with you, there actually is stuff in the Constitution about copyright. We'll get to that in a moment. Let's first go back again to the Copyright Act of 1976. It's called the 1976 Copyright Act. It actually came into fruition on January 1st, 1978. That was a turning point. It did take a while for the House and Congress to pass the law. But the 1978 Copyright Act basically says any music after 1978 will be protected for the life of the creator and 70 years thereafter their death. So it will protect the person that created it. It will protect the royalties from that for their spouse and their family, even after they're dead, for 70 years. After that, the copyright will expire, and there could be the potential for the family to sell the copyright or sell the intelligent idea or whatever, or they can renew it, and then they'd have to go through the proper channels through the Library of Congress and through the Copyright Office. And it usually takes a little bit of time and money, so there is a lag on that. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But that act in 1978 was a huge act that protected people. Some of the most famous cases of where the Copyright Act came into play, let's go back to Vanilla Ice's Ice Ice Baby, and of course the sample pulled from Queen, Under Pressure. That was a huge deal back in the day. I remember it. Even it was like 1994, 1995, somewhere in there. Maybe even a little later. No, probably around there. 3, 4, 5, somewhere in there. Where he pulled the din 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 din, and then he claimed he added another beat in there to change it. Well, that's not how that works at all. Basically, here's how copyright works. All right. You own the copyright to your information the minute you think of it. Think about that. The minute it pops into your brain, the minute you think of it, create an idea, create a thing, it is immediately copyrighted. Now, the problem is you don't have any physical evidence of you thinking of it yet, right? You can't prove to a jury or a judge that I thought of it first without some sort of physical proof that you thought of it first. So how do you get physical fixed proof, something that is hard evidence that you came up with it at this moment in this time? Let's talk about it in terms of 1978 to about 2007, okay? Because previous to our huge technical explosion here in the world, it was hard to keep track of these ideas. Literally, you would go by handwritten documents, presenting people that would be witnesses to it, proving that it was done on this date at this time. It was a lot harder to prove copyright unless it was already put out. Like the Vanilla Ice thing, Queen had that out a decade before Vanilla Ice sampled it. So that was obvious proof. But prior to that, if you didn't release something and someone sat in on a studio session, listened to something, took that idea and quickly put it down and put it out there, it would be very difficult for that artist to protect their creativity and their ideas and expressions to a judge or a jury proving that they did it first. Right? Things were not stored on hard drives that have a date and a time, and even then you can fake that. So a lot of people still went through the proper governmental way of copywriting, but it's not necessary. It's a great thing. You'll get the government on your side. You'll have the full support of the federal government if you get your information or imagination or ideas and thoughts and expressions down and send it into the Library of Congress, but it's not necessary. So one of the other things people used to say is, well, if I wrote all my lyrics down and I sent it in the post office to myself, then and I never opened the envelope, then I would have an envelope that is marked by a United States government agency with a date that proves that it was done at that time. It's almost like creating a time capsule. And then you never open the envelope, because if you opened it, that's the end of that. You could have faked that and cheated on that. But even that, people were doing that back in the 70s and 80s a lot. But even that doesn't really fully prove much, because what if the other person came up with something else, sent it out the day before you, and they have something dated a day before? It is not easy back in the day to prove a copyright. And that's why people relied on going through the government to uphold the copyright law. Then on the other side of that, to prove it, to track them down, unless it was a Vanilla Ice Queen fight or dispute, a lot of smaller underground artists got away with everything. DJs got away with everything. People got away with faking performances, pretending to be a band. People are still getting away with today creating things in the likeness of. There are a lot of things that the copyright law covers nowadays, and we're going to talk about those in a little bit. So what are the myths about copywriting? Do I really need to send it to DC? No, you don't really need to do that. It has been proven that you don't need to do that. Is it nice to do it? Yes. Will you have the power of the federal government behind you? Yes. Here's the deal. The moment you create something in your head, something original and something with some sort of creativity, it is technically copyrighted. The next step would be to put it down physically and have proof of day and time that it was done at that moment. Now, obviously, with the benefits of technology also comes the benefits of faking technology, where if I took a picture of it next to a newspaper from, 2 weeks ago, I could just Photoshop the newspaper with digital technology. There's a lot of trickery and fake information or false information very easily manipulated nowadays. So you have to really think about a way to prove that what you just thought of and what you just put down is yours. So again, even if I were to send it to DC, again, with the federal government being behind you, it isn't always a perfect system. It has proven to work, but it is not proven to work 100% of the time. The other thing you got to think about in copywriting is the final version of your song or lyrics. The final version isn't the only thing that is covered under your copyright. Let me give you a quick example. I do a recording over the next 4 days with an artist. All right. On day one, the artist puts down drums and guitar and bass. On day two, the artist puts down vocals, the lyrics. 2 days later, during the mixing process, the artist decides to change their vocals, to change a chorus or to change a couple of words in the verse. And then they go back into the studio, they record, they do whatever, and it changes. The copyright isn't going to be just for the final part. It's going to be for every single version underneath the original version or the final version, if you want to call it that. Every single time that you made a change, that previous version is covered. You don't get to just give it up. Again, let's say you did a 40-day film shoot, right? And you're doing editing over the course of a year. The first cut of the film isn't now open for anyone to use. You still own a copyright on that. The first version of a song that was recorded 4 years ago but never released, You still own that, even though you re-released it under a new name, under a new version with new lyrics. All of those things are covered under copyright law. What else does it cover? It covers and protects not only the idea, but the thought process behind it. It protects an expression. So, but it doesn't always cover the idea. I'm sorry, did I say cover the idea? Now I'm looking back at it. It protects the expression. Let me explain this. Let me give you a very, very easy concept. We know there's a lot of songs out there whose overall idea is about the same subject matter, right? Let's say we all wrote a song about the Titanic sinking. It sounds ridiculous, but it could happen. All right. So artist A makes a song about the Titanic sinking. Artist B writes a song about the Titanic speaking. You can't really copyright the idea of the Titanic sinking. It's sunk. Likewise, if you broke up with John and someone on the other end of the country also broke up with the John, and both people write a song about breaking up with John, you can't fight each other about that. Now, I didn't say it was the same instrumental composition or lyrics. I just said the idea of breaking up with John or the idea of the Titanic sinking. You can't copyright that. That is not something you can copyright. You cannot copyright that idea of a moment of time. What you can copyright is the expression of that idea. So artist A writes about breaking up with John, devastating breakup, comes up with this really sappy, heartfelt, I'm dying inside breakup song. Artist B also writes a song about breaking up with John, but they write a song that's more like, screw you, John, I'm moving on. You see, the idea is still they broke up with John, but both of them expressed it in different ways, using different instrumentation and different lyrics. So you can see you can't copyright the idea, but you can copyright the expression of the idea. That's part of what the copyright covers. As I mentioned, back in 1978, the Copyright Act of 1976, which didn't take effect until 78, covers you for your entire life, or the band's life, really, plus 70 years thereafter. Now, technically speaking, copyright law came about in 1787. It wasn't called a copyright law. Let's go back to 1787. When the Constitution was being written, Article 1 covered things like promoting the thoughts and ideas of making a better country. Imagine that happening now. That'd be awesome. We focused a lot of our time and energy into just making things better. Well, I think that's what we're doing. Back then, it wasn't as complicated. It was more geared towards science and invention. And I think we're doing that now. People like Elon Musk and what's his face with Virgin Airlines. But there's also thousands of unnamed scientists that are, I mean, God, the people trying to develop a vaccination for COVID is just one of those things that so much money and resources are putting into, not only for a better future, but hopefully just for right now, a public health concern. The Constitution, 1787, Article 1, stems from the idea that you wanted to protect the advancement of science and invention. You wanted to help, or you wanted to give scientists and inventors some sort of federal government backing so they were protected, so their ideas and thoughts weren't ripped off, taken, and they couldn't properly get the right money, fame, funding for future projects. So these ideas of copyright stem all the way back from 1787. That Article 1 gave exclusive rights and ideas to create. It incentivized people to continue to create. It gave them a reason to keep going. They knew that once they thought of an idea, put it down on paper, and submitted it, that was their idea and nobody else's. Whether it turned out to be a good idea or a bad idea, that's something else to be said. But what they did back in 1787 was build infrastructure to be creative here in America, to think, to want to explore, to push the envelope of math and science, to create new things that would benefit society. We wouldn't be here in our technological society without these unfortunate government regulations, without that government sitting there helping people, incentivizing people to continue to create and make. What's the incentive? Money, fame, continued funding to make more. And what's the incentive for the inventor? Knowledge that you created something. Of course, the money to be successful, if that's what really success means. And again, the future of you, your company, your family, whatever, because it incentivizes you to continue to create and make things better. Now, that seems to be the drive for artists in general, not just today, but for a very long time. Right? I mean, at first, it usually seems like a lot of it's a very emotional expression of how they're feeling at the moment or the idea that came into their head. But imagine we didn't have any federal laws that protected these artists from being ripped off the day it came out, for someone to take the idea and attempt to make it better. Just like invention. We always talked about the building blocks of invention. You start with a simple idea, the next person takes that idea and tries to improve upon it without infringing copyright, without infringing the law. They come up with a better idea. Then that person takes it and goes to the next level and does something else with it. That's how we got up to the telephone. That's how we got up to wireless communication. That's how we got into transistor radios and now satellites in space that beam down radio signals and television signals. That's how we got there. People took the ideas and ran with it. The original creator benefited, got funded, and was incentivized to continue to create. That was a major part of the foundation of this country. In 1778, they focused more on music, the arts, entertainment. This included artwork. This included movies. This included basically anything that is technically non-physical until we can put it down physically. Lyrics, all that stuff. There is a lot of incentive out there for an artist to make sure they're protected under their copyright. Now, how does the modern day artist get the copyright? Well, like I said, you don't need to send it to Washington, D.C. The minute it pops in your head, it's copyrighted. The problem is it's not physical. It's hard to prove an idea in your head. So a lot of artists go out, they write things down, they create physical copies, they create proof. This is another supporting concept of why you should stay organized with your digital content. Whatever it is you're creating, please make sure you're putting in the right place, because if you have to go back and prove that you had a certain time and day where you thought of this, you better be able to go into your hard drive or your computer to prove it, to show that it was created on this date at this time, so on and so forth. If you are not organized, you lost your flash drive, your computer doesn't have a backup or an archive, and then you try to go fight copyright law with no proof, you got a problem. You're going to have a problem. And it could be the opposite. People don't think about it. You put something down, someone steals it, and 2 weeks later makes a lot of money on it, and then they come after you. That happens. You were the original one that created something. They ripped it off, and now they're coming after you? How does that happen? That is grimy, but that happens. There are people out there that are very greedy and are trying to cheat the system at every single chance. You need to have that particular proof on hand, ready to go, where you can take a suit, create a countersuit, and come out on top. Not only regaining your intellectual property, but having the support of any sort of judicial system that can exactly prove without a shadow of doubt that the content was created on this day at this time. It's extremely important you stay organized, and it all goes back to file organization. If you lost everything, you can't prove a thing. Good luck. Good luck screaming at people because it ain't going to work. You need facts, you need evidence, you need proof. The federal government's there. If you want to go through it, you can go on to the Copyright Office in the Library of Congress, I believe. It's still online. We can look that up later this week. You can absolutely send your stuff in. But again, you don't have to. It just gives you the support of the federal government. If you want to fight on your own, by all means. If you have the proof, you don't need the federal government. But if you're at all, scared that your intellectual property could be stolen and being used somewhere else, you better go get some help. Because you in your basement creating beats isn't enough to fight against a music industry giant like a record company, like a distribution company. Good luck fighting UMG. Good luck fighting UMG. Here's the deal. There are, and with that right in 1976, there were some exclusive rights that they gave the artist. I'm going to give you these exclusive rights. Right now, I'm going to give you, we'll give you 5 of them, and then we'll talk about another one that's more modernized. All right. So we'll start with one right that is given to the copyright owner is you have the right to make a copy of your work, which means you have the right to create multiple copies and distribute it, sell it, make more copies if in fact you run out of your copies. So obviously in the 70s and 80s, it was mostly about records. It was mostly about cassettes. And so the distribution and sale of those records and cassettes was pretty much the main source of your income. Touring and stuff like that wasn't as big and powerful as it is today. Ticket sales weren't as big and powerful as it is today. So you made a huge amount of money on selling the record, distribution of your work, making a copy of what you did, and your right to go out and sell that. Okay, that was the first exclusive right you were given through the copyright law. Let me give you another one. The word derivative means it comes from. So derivative works for licensing for other ways of using your intellectual property. In this case, we're talking about music, right? So there's a couple of examples of this. The one that comes to mind really quickly is the song Yesterday by the Beatles. Yesterday, all my troubles. You know the song. I don't have a guitar to sing it for you. Actually, I do have a guitar. It's around here somewhere. You have the right to take that original work you created and mold it into something else. In this case, they built an entire movie called Yesterday around the Beatles song. So that is considered a derivative work. Anything that stems from your original work directly, you have the right to. And obviously, for them to create the movie Yesterday, they had to get the rights from the Beatles. They either had to pay a royalty or they had to get a royalty deal where, they would get a certain amount of the sales, total sales, investing wise. You've seen Shark Tank, so you get the concept. The derivative works are covered under this. Another example of that is NWA, right? Created an entire movie straight out of Compton. There was an entire movie created about the concept of the song. And I can think of probably like 3 or 4 other examples. I'm just going to continue going through my list here, but these are derivative works. And that is from the music to the screen. Now, it could be other things. It could be from the music to a sculpture, a music track to a painting, a music track to a graphic design. There is rights of the owner to have those derivative works, we'll say. I was going to say something else, but those original works, part of your copyright of the song or the track, whatever you want to call it, or the album. Even the album artwork is covered. But derivative works, all the licensing that you can use for that song to go out into other mediums. Here's another one, another exclusive rights for copyright. You have the right to perform it. You have the right to perform it. Huh. Well, duh, doesn't it seem like if I made the song, can I go out and play it? Yeah, you can. The thing is, you want to make sure you're collecting the right amount of money for your performance of this. All right. So there are a bunch of these organizations out there, performance right organizations, that is the ability to collect money on the performances of your song. Now, here's where it starts getting a little dicey. You're an artist. You paid for the rights to cover another artist's song. Do you still have the rights to go out and perform it? Well, because performance is one of the exclusive rights, you'd have to also pay the original artist to perform their song. Even though you got the original rights to record it, now you need separate ones to perform it. So a lot of times the management companies, they'll go through a deal where it gives them the right to do both, and they'll come up with a number that both parties agree on to do that. But the original artist has the right to perform their original song and collect money on it. So it just protected the performers. So when they went out on tour, they were getting paid appropriately for their original content. And it can be protected by the federal government. Here's another one. Interesting. The rights to sell. So the artist has the right to sell their information. I mentioned before the artist has a right to make a copy of the work, but then there's like a separate part where that means they can go sell it. So, I mean, it's all one thing. Obviously, it's all their exclusive rights to sell it. But this then also goes to examples like people buying the rights for certain areas. Like, for instance, Michael Jackson bought the rights to the Beatles for a while. I don't know if he still obviously doesn't hold it anymore because he's passed away, but he bought the some of the rights, I think, either to sell or to own all of the copywriting for a lot of the libraries of songs the Beatles had. You know, it's a obvious ode to how important the Beatles were in music history in general, especially since another music history guru, Michael Jackson, um, bought it, knowing how important it was for that catalog to remain intact. Since then, I don't know where the rights have gone after that. If anyone knows, you let me know. And I guess I could Google it, but I'm not going to do it right this second. But as a artist, you do have the rights to sell your content to other people as well. So the Beatles sold their content to Michael Jackson, who then owned them. And I'm not sure now if then the copyright goes on for the life plus 70 years. So does Jackson's family still own it for the next 70 years? Maybe. I don't know. I'll look it up. I'll find it out. I didn't really follow that example that I thought of. Here's another one that's really interesting. And this is the one that I was kind of referring to before. But the artist has the right to publicly display any part of the original creative idea. So how do you display music? How do you display sound? Well, what about the lyrics? The lyrics are handwritten. You're usually seeing lyrics on paper or seeing lyrics typed up. A lot of times, some of the cooler parts are seeing the handwriting of the artist on their original piece of loose leaf. I remember when I was younger and looking at one of Nirvana's albums, he wrote down all of his lyrics in like a yellow loose leaf binder or something like that. and you could see all the scratch outs, and you could see the words that he wanted to use and didn't use. And I thought that was really very cool. It's a good insight into the creative process. But that public display, people are actually violating a lot nowadays. Let me give you an example. Go ahead and go on to Pinterest, or go on to Etsy, or go on to one of these, artsy sites. And even scroll through your Instagram feed or your social media feed if you're at all a musical person and follow different musical artists. And you're going to inevitably find someone that took the lyrics to a song and turned it into a t-shirt. And 99% of the time, they did not pay royalties or gain a licensing of that lyrics legally. Most of them are illegally taking somebody's creative work and they're making money off of it. And that is a violation of federal copyright law. You see these things in people's homes where they have the sticker that goes up on the back wall, and it's a quote from, John Lennon or Michael Jackson or James Brown or something, Jimi Hendrix. 99% of the time, the person that sold you that sticker does not pay any royalties, does not have a licensing agreement with the original music creator or whoever owns the rights at this time. Obviously, like people like James Brown and Hendrix have been dead for a long time. All of them, actually. All the people I mentioned are dead. Sorry. That is illegal. You cannot create T-shirts. You cannot stencil or carve into wood the lyrics of a song without and selling it. You could do it yourself at your home and put it up at your house. But most of these people aren't doing that. No one's welding metal punch outs that has John Lennon's quotes on it and putting in their house. Maybe 1 in 1,000 do it themselves. The rest that sell it are doing it illegally. It costs a lot of money to get a licensing fee for copyrighted material. So people just say, screw it, I'm not going to do it. And I'm going to sell it on Pinterest and Etsy and all these other artsy sites. And I'm going to make a butt ton of money on all of this stuff out there. That's very illegal. Very illegal. One of my 2 favorite shirts. The first one is like that. It's a silhouette of ODB, and it's like orange and yellow and green and red, and it's like 4 corners, but it's one big silhouette of him. Guaranteed nobody got the licensing from either Wu-Tang, the management company, or ODB's family to make that shirt. Or the Biggie ones. I saw the Biggie ones on a lot of people. No one's buying the thousands and thousands of dollar licensing fee that would take to recreate Biggie's face or album cover or a t-shirt that has his lyrics on it. That is all very, very illegal. But there's not enough people in the federal government to chase after these people. So unless it comes up in another way, unless like the company gets in trouble for tax evasion, they'll go back and they'll see if they violated any copyright laws. And if they did, they'll tack those on to the tax evasion. If someone thinks they're getting away with something, they just keep doing it. We all know what that's like nowadays, right? If you can just continue doing what you're doing and you feel more comfortable doing it, you'll just step it up a notch and it'll just keep escalating and escalating until finally it comes to a head. And then everything you ever did is compounding the issue. If you were a perfect angel your whole life and you made one little mistake, more than likely, you probably it won't be a problem. But if you just keep getting greedy, like some of these companies do, and producing these items and selling them and making thousands upon thousands of dollars, more than likely they're going to trip up one time. And not only get in trouble for the original crime, but they'll get in trouble for everything they've ever done that wasn't legal. A lot of copyright infringement comes up in other court cases after the fact that a company or a person has been violating other laws. So public display of lyrics, apparel, wood, metal, anything like that was created out of an original idea, thought, taking words created by an artist, that is illegal unless you pay for the licensing and the distribution of that information to the copyright holder. let's talk about the last one, and then we're out of here because then I have to go up to school and see you guys' beautiful faces up there at starting at 12 o'clock. The last one I want to talk about is the more current thing that we have to worry about. Digital audio. We have the right as artists, as producers, as engineers, depending on if we own the copyright, to say no to our music being places. We know about this a couple years ago when streaming music took over the record industry and basically sunk it. And there were a lot of artists that boycotted iTunes and Spotify and Pandora. They tried to come up with their own company to sell streaming music. They knew they weren't going to be able to avoid the streaming music wave or change. So they decided to start their own. Didn't work out. And now most of those artists now are back into a much better deal with these streaming sites like iTunes, like Spotify, like Pandora, like all those. All right. Part of your exclusive rights is to say no. So no platform like iTunes or Spotify can take your music and post it up to their website. They can't do that. They're not allowed to. You have to agree to it. Now, by agreeing in a lot of cases means you have to cut some sort of deal. You have to sit down. Management sits down and makes it a big financial venture. So you have the ability to say no. Now, one of the things that is going on out there today is the Facebook and YouTube rights violation. One of which I was talking about before, and let's see if it's still here. One of which I was fighting, not fighting, but like letting them know that our, forget which one it was, our lesson about Logic and some of the new content. So that was the videos from last week. Let's see. Oh, here it is. Copyright claim. Okay. So this was a video that, here we go. We were doing the licensing. I sent in the information about the licensing for Billie Eilish's Ocean Eyes because they sold the rights in one way, shape, or form to Apple or have some sort of agreement with Apple to then send the entire song and all of its parts to every user that buys the software, right? So we own rights to Logic Pro, which Apple then owns rights to Ocean Eyes, which then bought it from UMG. And there it is. It says it right here on behalf of Darkroom UMG. Copyright owners are right here. Here they are. Now they have the right to decide whether I can use that or not. It's not going to mean anything to the video. I just cannot monetize it, which I wouldn't do anyway. I can't make money on someone else's work, right? That's the whole point of copywriting. So YouTube actually has a really good algorithm that listens and finds out if it's something that they think is in high violation or has other problems with even further other countries, worldwide issues that go on with the artist in other countries, they'll shut you down for it, man. There is no joke here. You can't mess around. If you see a lot of videos out there that have this music in it, more than likely behind the scenes, this is what that video owner is doing. He's fighting copyright. I put a dispute in saying that Logic bought the rights from UMG, and then I bought the rights from Logic when I own Logic, and Logic owns UMG, and UMG owns Billie Eilish. Doesn't that mean I get a copy of it? And doesn't that mean I can then display it? Isn't it now public for me? And in the other case, I also claimed fair rights. I'm doing an educational setting here. There is some stipulations in the copyright law that you can use music and content under the idea of fair use. Fair use we'll get into tomorrow, but it means that I'm using it not to make money. I'm using it to help entertain and bring forth change or whatever it is that you're doing with that content. That is fair use. You're not gaining anything from the use of it. I'm not gaining anything from the use of this song. I'm not making money. I'm using it as an example to help teach people. There's also a part of the copyright law that protects educational facilities, in that if I wanted to use something in an educational setting, I'm allowed to, right? I would be allowed to play music in my room. I'm not making money off the music. The music isn't necessary for me to make money, or for the school to make money, or for the class to make money, for anything. So really, under the educational umbrella, there's some rules and regulations that we can look at tomorrow. The big thing is, this Copyright Act of 1978 started to lay the groundwork for the future. And every so often, as technology changes, we've added in new things to help protect the artist, because now there's new ways of people to get their hands on it. And now, as we see with Billie Eilish, I can get it down to the sample that she used. I can get it down to the loop that she did. I can get her isolated vocals. They had to come up with some sort of agreement on their end. And what's interesting is I got an email just saying they emailed and let UMG know, I'm interested what UMG is going to say about this. I want to hear their thought process. If they own the rights to Billie Eilish's song, which they do, she really doesn't, or they have an agreement where she might own 40 to 50 and they own 50, because that's what you do when you sign. A lot of your content is not yours, unfortunately. It depends on each artist, and it depends on the contracts made, and depends on management and how good they are. Unfortunately, then thereafter, Billie Eilish would then take on future revenue. Even after she dies, her family would own that percentage for 70 years. So if anything ever gets made in the future, obviously they would benefit from it. But UMG is going to benefit too. Otherwise, they wouldn't have these artists in there represented on their behalf. So to make a copy of your own work, to have derivative works go from different mediums in licensing, performance, your rights to sell your copyright to other people, your ability to publicly display elements of your creative work. Obviously, back in the science and invention era, that was really important, because you want to be able to go out and show people your work and prove how it works, so you can gain some followers or supporters, and collect money towards future endeavors, investments. And then finally, your recording. The recording in a digital world, in a streaming world nowadays, in a place where if you wanted to find a picture of something, you can Google search it. If you want to find a song, you go into Spotify or YouTube. If you wanted to find anything, it's out there. So you got to have some newer things that are going to help protect the artist in our new society, our new technological virtual society. And it's only going to change more, because things are only going to be different, more and more and more compounded each and every year, with new technology, new places to do things, new ways of doing things. I'm exhausted. That's a long time to talk. So I appreciate all you guys for coming in. I'm going to be going up to school in about 15, 20 minutes. The first session starts at 12 o'clock. At 12 o'clock, A through M, one by one, can come into the classroom and get anything out of their locker. I'll talk to you when we get there about exactly the thing. Make sure you have your masks. Make sure you have your gloves. And make sure you just follow the rules, because they're not going to put up with any nonsense. There's going to be a lot of people there trying to get in and out of the school. So we staggered all the times. It's been going on all day. There's people in all sorts of places and rooms. And it'll continue even after you guys are there. So from 12 to 1 is A through M. From 1 to 2 is N through Z. If you have your last name starting with one of those letters, please make sure, if you left anything in your locker, your binder, your notes, a jacket, a whatever, if you don't get it today, it'll be thrown out. Bring your flash drive in case I can get you in there. If there's not a lot of you coming in, then I'll have you grab some stuff off your hard drive if you need to. Otherwise, I'm not sure if that'll happen. I can't guarantee anything. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to look at when we get up there. If it's going to be a complete and utter craziness, or it's going to actually be, organized and complete. Vince, what's up, buddy? What do you got?
All I left was my flash drive.
Okay. So if you want to come up and grab it, you come up and grab it.
Okay.
I'll be there. You are a M, so I will see you between 12 and 1.
Okay.
All right, cool. So yeah, if you guys need anything, be up there between your time. Otherwise, we'll be back here tomorrow starting at till 10 o'clock. Yeah, I was going to say 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock a.m. tomorrow for more talk about the copyright for the individual and how that all, kind of what it means for you, how it all boils down to what you can and what you can't do. And we'll summarize that tomorrow. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your beautiful day today. And if I don't see you, I'll see you tomorrow on this Zoom meeting. Holla, holla, holla.